Oh, yes, sir. This is B. Brian Blair, the Killer Bee. And I've been from Maine to Spain, and I've been from spreading pollen from New York to Holland. And as a matter of fact, that's how we created the hive. I've been north, south, east, and west. I've been from ocean to ocean. I've been from coast to coast. But one place I have never been is on the Cheap Heat podcast with Maurice. And I'm really digging that the most.
Oh, I forgot to put myself back in there. That was a great promo to start off. I'm joined today by B. Brian Blair, one half of the Killer Bees legendary tag team. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing awesome, Maurice. How are you, my friend?
I am doing good, man. It was first time anyone has started off with a promo. I kind of like that, but I wouldn't be approaching guys. Hey, do you mind doing a promo? You suggested it. I wasn't going to say no, man.
All right, man. Just trying to liven up the show.
Yeah, I suppose One thing I want to say is because we were exchanging a few emails and you said you have some kind of Irish and Scottish heritage. So I'd like to hear about that to start off with.
Oh, yeah, my ancestry.com. Well, I always knew that because my grandfather, Les Blair, would always talk about his Scotch-Irish heritage. And then he told me that they even have games named after our family. I said, really, Grandpa, what's that? He said, it's called the Blair Games. I said, I've never heard of those, but he assured me, that there were the Blair Games. And when he told me, I don't think I had Google at the time, so I didn't get up and Google it. But
yeah,
tell me, are there the Blair Games?
Yes, I actually Googled it earlier, and they do exist.
Yeah. So what is that?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I've never heard of it. It must be more of a Scottish thing than an Irish thing.
Okay. Well, I know in Ireland they like to drink beer, and so do I.
Yeah. Have you ever been over here?
No, like I said, I've been around the world, but I have never been to Ireland. Love to. That's on my bucket list.
Yeah, actually, before the COVID-19 situation, when it happened, there was actually a wrestling convention. Ireland's first ever wrestling convention was announced, and a couple of people were down. I think who was down for it? The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. I can't remember who else, but there was maybe 4 or 5 names announced in advance, and then this was going to be Ireland's first wrestling convention. And then obviously COVID hit, and now things are starting to open again. But I just hope that the company that are running it pick it up again and do it, because there's a huge kind of wrestling market over here in Ireland, as well as the UK, obviously, with great conventions on over there as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, wrestling's popular all around the world. I remember when I left WWFE at the end of '89, I had more work than I knew what to do with. I opened up Gold's Gyms and started with one, wound up building several, and sold them when they weren't for sale. But I never stopped going to Japan. I never stopped going on the independent tours, which took me just all over, from India. And I wrestled in a place called Kota Kinabalu on the island of Sabah in Malaysia, off the Malaysian coast. And we had an unbelievable riot there. The Nasty Boys, Frenchie Martin. There was a lot of great Bam Bam Bigelow. A lot of wonderful talent on there, and they just hadn't seen that, and they weren't used to it. And all of a sudden, boom, the ring was just filled with people, and we're fighting our way. And all of a sudden, I feel myself fall backwards, and the the Indian referee that was also the promoter pulled me backwards because I guess he was getting kicked or hit or something. So he tried to use me for a shield. I mean, it was crazy. But we've been to some crazy places.
And how, I know you get asked this question all the time, but how did you decide that this was the world that you wanted to go into?
Well, if you ever get a chance to read my book, I know you had Ian Douglas, my co-author, on. We wrote Truth Be Told, which is a very hot seller and all 5 stars on Amazon. People actually really, really love it. There's talks now even doing a script off of for a actual real life story movie based off the book. So we'll find out more about that in about 3 weeks from now.
Mm-hmm. And leading into going into the wrestling world, we'll say before WWE.
To answer your question, I was poor.
Yeah.
My parents are divorced. I was the oldest of 5 siblings. We moved from Gary, Indiana, which is like the armpit of the United States, right next to Chicago. It's a steel city, very, very tough city. And we moved to Tampa when I was 11, and just my mom and dad, I don't know what happened, but I love my mom and dad both. My mom lives in my guest house. See my dad all the time. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man. Never heard him argue. But nevertheless, they were divorced when I was young. And so I was always thinking about, I don't want to be poor. And so I started watching wrestling, WTOG, Channel 44, Gordon Soley, So Long from the Sunshine State, Championship Wrestling from Florida, and just I was enamored with it. And so I figured if I became an athlete, that I could make money. And I wanted to get an education first because my dad always told me, get your education, son, no matter what you do, get your education. So I did that and, participated in sports so much to the fact that I still have the record for the most letters in high school to this day.
Wow.
Varsity letters to this day, because I didn't have anything to do really except play sports.
Sport mad.
Sport man, go to school.
Yeah.
Go to school.
Before you went to the WWF, and that's where like a lot of people would have seen you like on primetime television and things like that. You've done a lot of work outside the WWF, and you wrestled even Hulk Hogan before you guys were on the WWF. And you guys go way back. What's your relationship like with Hulk?
Oh, we have a very, very strong relationship. Always have, always will. Terry is a wonderful guy. A lot of people, don't realize what a tough guy he is, but I was stretched in the dungeon here in Florida, which is famous for people leaving without their clothes and never returning. All people with aspirations to be a professional wrestler. And I spent 3 summers of my life there. And Hulkster, Terry Bollea, came there. He was a rock and roll band, like a freak, wore these platform, big platform shoes. He was already 6'7" or whatever, and long blonde hair, beautiful suntan, great body. And so I'd sneak into the bar, and actually drinking age was 18. When I was 17, I would sneak into a bar called The Other Place and watch his band called Ruckus. And I'd see him at the wrestling matches too, at the Armory, and pretty soon we became friends. And lo and behold, the Briscoes helped get him started. And he came in to train with Hiro Matsuda and Gordon Nelson and just a host of others that Carl Gotch, guys that could, turn you into a pretzel in a second. And, thank God we all made it. Well, 3 of us made it out of about 100. It was Hulkster, Mr. Wonderful, and myself during those 3 summers.
Yeah. And obviously, like, he went on to have, like, I suppose with Steve Austin in the modern era, you'd say that the 2 of them are probably the most, I guess, famous wrestlers of all time, would you say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Steve, too. Steve's a great guy. He was we've been on tours in Japan together. Steve's a real deal. He's a super guy. he never stops. You know, I mean, you were just at WrestleMania. Was just at Mania, and you know, if Steve likes you, he likes you, and if he doesn't like you, he'll certainly let you know. I've seen him say,
Yeah.
you know, I've heard him tell a few guys off, but he's a super good guy. He'll always give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Just on Mania, when we mentioned Steve, what did you think of him going for that match at 57? Like he looks like he hasn't aged a day in those 19 years, really.
No, he doesn't, and that's because he stays in shape. He trains hard. He works out hard. I mean, you know, I remember Lou Thez wrestled until he was like 70.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, Steve can still go. You know, we all slow down as we get older, but you know, Steve was at the top of his game, 57 or not. He's as good as he can be for his age.
Breaking up the wrestling chat for a second, go back to the emails we exchanged. You said that you know one of the guests on this show, Carole Baskin. I think the viewers will be interested to know how you and Carole know each other.
Yes, actually, when I was elected countywide here in Hillsborough County, we have over 3,000 counties in the United States of America, and Hillsborough County is like the 30th largest county. We have about 1.5 million people, almost 1,200 square miles of landmass. And so it's like running for governor of 10 other states. 11 other states were actually bigger in population. And so I won my race. And we have many boards that were on it. And Carole was on, I inherited Carole from the person that had the seat before me on the animal. So she was on the Animal Advisory Committee. And I got to know Carole there, working with on the Animal Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I had her on the show, and she kind of gets a lot of stick because of you've obviously seen the shows, and people think this and that about her husband. And I've had people from both sides on. I've had people that don't like her, that like Joe, and then I've had Carole as well. But I think you give anyone a chance to listen to her, and she's always been nice to me. And just for the record, I don't think she's a murderer, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and you know, I don't either, Maurice. But you know, people jump to the gun so much. I got so much pressure from women. Predominant, it was almost all women who came to me, and because of that, they wanted me to let Carole go from the Animal Advisory Board, which eventually I had to because the heat got so great over that. And you know, we're talking now 2000. I think that was in 2004 or 5. So she, you know, I never thought that she killed anybody, or it's just that she had there was such a conspiracy built there, and there was enough things to carry that conspiracy. But I would have thought that we have some great police here, some great investigators, and you would think that they would have found out. So, you know, in our country, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, absolutely. And from one big personality to another, I just want to know about your relationship with Vince McMahon
I get along
Jr.
Great. Vince Jr. and Vince Sr. When Vince Sr. was alive, I went to the territory of WWF 2 times before I was ever a Killer Bee. And as a matter of fact, Vince Sr. put the B in my name because my mother called me Bieber, like Justin Bieber. And Dusty Rhodes changed that to Beeper. And my siblings all called me B. And so some of my friends called me B. And so Vince Sr. would hear Orndorff call me either B or Beep or Bieber. He was always calling me something different. But he asked me about that, and he said, well, why don't you be B. Brian Blair? He goes, I'm sitting here looking at the New York phone book, and there's a ton of Brian Blairs, but there's no B. Brian Blair. And I said, well, that's fine with me, sir, whatever you'd like. And so that's how the B. Brian Blair came.
And how like hands-on was Vince Jr. when you were there? And obviously in the 80s, they kind of with the company was going through a lot, and then there was a steroid trial and Dark Side of the Ring covered that and all that kind of thing. So we don't need to go into it in detail. But did he ever come across to you as kind of stressed about the whole thing, or does any interactions with him come to mind?
Um, you mean about the steroid trial or the
Yeah,
transition, or well, Vince's role when I first met Vince was he was the announcer,
yeah,
and he was a really good announcer. And I remember him commentating when we had a match. Orndorff and I had a match in St. Louis. We had several matches in St. Louis, but this one particular match, it's on YouTube. Uh, it, to be in the Kiel Auditorium, it was like electricity. Mr. Wonderful had so much heat. I mean, so much heat. And we started together. We worked in Oklahoma, Louisiana, all Mid South, all around the country together, Georgia. And so Paul and I had a lot of chemistry. And this particular night, it was from like the very after 1 minute for the entire match, just about, the people stood up, and Vince, I couldn't hear obviously what he was saying during his commentary, but Chief Jay Strongbow came up to Paul and I after the match, and we were really happy. We knew we had a good match, and he said, Caesar wants to see you in his office. And
yeah,
of course, everywhere Chief called him Caesar, but we went into his office not knowing what was up, and Vince isn't a touchy guy or anything, but he grabbed us both and he said, I want you guys to know that, and he put his right hand up. He goes, I have never witnessed a match that good in my life, and I just want to thank you for it. And that was the highest compliment, I believe, that I've ever had in my life, from considering it was coming from Vince McMahon Jr.
yeah. Was that one of your proudest moments in the business then?
Definitely one of my proudest moments in the business.
Yeah. What was a typical WWF locker room like in the 80s?
Always fun, when you had the British Bulldogs and Mr. Fuji, and you had other guys like Outback Jack that they would pick on, and Matilda was there. Just the whole dressing room atmosphere was always ribs, and from a lot of guys would chew the skull, and somebody killed a cockroach and put it in one of the guys' skull cans. And I remember it got passed around, and then Orndorff just took a dip and handed it to Ken Patera, and Ken Patera pulled that dip of skull out, and these little legs were moving.
Oh God.
I saw Jimmy Snuka just went, he hurled all over the place because he was the first guy to take a dip out of that thing. And, oh gosh, it was hilarious. There was never a dull moment, Maurice.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment. I mean, just it's hard to explain. It was perpetual fun. It was like grown-up kids. You're on the road so long, there's not a whole lot to do. So practical jokes become part of your life.
Yeah. And of course, like the business itself does have like a toll on people, maybe financially, physically, alcohol, drugs, same as any other kind of business. It's like the music business or any other business. But I want to know about the 501c3 charity that you were talking to me about in the email, and how that came about and what it is and how it looks after people that may find themselves in difficulties.
That's a great question, Maurice. And it started in 1965. Iron Mike Mazurki in California. I think it was the Elks Lodge. They would huddle up, and you would have runners. As a matter of fact, Cauliflower, God bless him, from the CAC, just passed away. He was the CEO for 30 years. Carl explained to me how everybody would get a little pack of money, and you would take it to, certain guy that they heard was down on their luck. And so that's how it was designed to help wrestlers. And then it kind of grew into some boxing for a couple of years when Archie Moore was there. that were down financially. And so it's morphed into the only 501c3 for the professional wrestling industry that helps wrestlers that are down on their financial situation. We help with a lot of different things, and of course, everybody fills out an application. They go through. It gets checked. We make sure, and the only qualification is that you were made a living in the business full time for 3 years. And it could be an announcer, it could be the guy that put up the ring for 3 years, and we help give the money to them, and they don't have to pay us back. And we don't mention their names unless they want us to, like Kamala did, or Bobby the Brain Heenan, or Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, and I can go on down the line, guys that made millions of dollars. And we saved their homes, and we're very active giving away dollars now. And we have a reunion coming up in September. Anybody can join the Cauliflower Alley Club. Just go to the caulifloweralleyclub.org, and you can see our reunion. It'll actually be our 56th reunion. Would be our 57th if COVID hadn't hit, but our 56th reunion in Vegas, September 26th through the 28th. And, we have some tremendous honorees there. Again, it's all on the website at caulifloweralleyclub.org.
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing it, Maurice.
Yeah, I just want to ask one more question on that, Brian. It's like, what do you think generally is the biggest reason for, say, someone that's been famous, had a lot of money, and falls into a kind of a trap, a financial hole? What do you find is the biggest reason for it from your side of things?
Financial planning and lack of insurance.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
The book we're going to talk about now, with Ian Douglas, Truth Be Told. If people haven't read it, what can they expect from it? Is this pretty much your life on paper?
Yes, it is, but I try to keep the stuff about myself, to the first few chapters, and then we kind of morph into how I started wrestling. Some of the questions you asked me at the beginning of the show, and it goes on and talks about so many of the wrestlers that I've been down the road with, that everybody that's listening to this show probably knows. And it's a 5-star review book. It's selling like crazy. You can get it on Amazon. It's $24.95 in America. I don't know what it is in Ireland or overseas, but it's a tremendous read. It really is. And I'm not just saying that. It's primarily because of my co-author, Ian Douglas, who's brilliant. And I wrote all the things down, and he put them together to do, and the right chronological order to make everything tell a real story. And we recently had somebody approach us about doing a movie on the book. So with big credentials, so they may do something based off the true story. We don't know yet, so we'll cross that bridge in a few weeks.
Yeah,
it's a great book. I encourage you to read it. I promise. I tell everybody that I talk to, if you don't like the book, I will personally give you double your money back, and I promise that. My right hand. You show me one of your viewers, show me that they bought the book and can say they didn't like it, I'll give them double their money back.
Yeah. Did you ever envision that you would write your own book, or how did it come about?
Yeah, I wrote a book before, a long time ago, when the NWO, and I had so many kids asking me, they were speaking Carney and talking in terms that just the wrestlers pretty much know, and from kayfabe to whatever, and so I wrote a book for those people on how to speak Carney and the definitions of the terms and things like that. It was called Smarten Up, Say It Right, and that was my first book. But then I wanted to write a book that really had teeth and something that people would really enjoy. I wanted to write a book that somebody who wasn't even a wrestling fan would enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that Ian and I accomplished together. And It's been a very rewarding experience. I've had so many people come up and tell me how it's either motivated them or they just thoroughly enjoyed it for the laughter and for the candidness, for the humor, for the openness, because I don't pull any punches. I mean, I tell the truth in the book, and that's why it's called Truth Be Told.
Yeah. And I will obviously put the link for the book underneath the description of this video. We'll sign off on a funny note. I'm going to ask you, what's the funniest thing you ever seen backstage in the WWF?
The funniest thing I've ever seen backstage? Oh gosh, so many. But I used to love Bret Hart's drawings on the chalkboard. And as a matter of fact, Bret drew an original drawing in the Truth Be Told book, just for the book. And it's really funny. But it's the Hart Foundation and the Killer Bees in today's, like we would look today with the right captions. And he would do that every chance he could, every time there was a chalkboard or a piece of chalk, and he would humor us. I mean, that was steady humor, but so many funny things. I remember one of the funniest things I ever saw was when this wrestler named the Monk, we were in the Dallas territory and the Von Erichs were there. And we were in Lawton, Oklahoma. And Kerry Von Erich took the Monk's towel. There was a big stage. We were at a place where there was a big stage and a big curtain. And Kerry took the Monk's towel and put it over one of those pipes at the top of the ceiling. And there was a ladder right there. So the Monk is just off enough where he doesn't figure out what's going on. So Kerry and David are standing on the opposite ends of the big stage cords so you can pull the curtain open for the show. Yeah. And the way they had it set up, though, the ring was down in the audience, so you just had that curtain there. And so anyway, the Monk takes a shower, climbs up realizes his towel isn't there. So naturally, then he sees his towel up there. He looks around. There's nobody behind stage. So he's going up the ladder and takes a couple of steps, looks around, keeps going up the steps. Just about when he was ready to reach the towel, the Von Erichs pulled that curtain out. And I mean, there was standing room only in the place. It was packed. And when that curtain opened up, the Monk, I mean, he had very, very pale skin, which is cool, but he was redder than a tomato. I've never seen anybody that red in my life, that embarrassed. And he's trying to get the Von Erichs to close the curtain, and they won't close the curtain, and the people are just absolutely dying. And I mean, I'm surprised we all didn't get fired for that night.
Excellent. And look, Brian, really appreciate your time today. If people want to check out the book, it will be underneath this video. Have you got anything else coming up? Any conventions or anything you want to mention?
Well, I've got so many things coming up. We got a new reality show that's about to launch called Pro Wrestling Challenge. Just finished shoot for Vice TV. And we have a new series on Vice. Everybody's seen Dark Side of the Ring. Well, Dark Side of the Ring didn't get canceled. It actually will air again, but until the next season of that is in the can, they have started a new television series, and all I can say is it's about the territories, and it's going to be a great education. It's going to be a lot of fun, and so I just finished with that as well. So there's a lot of things going on, and I'm just grateful that the fans have been good enough to me to keep me lifted up, and they continue to come out and ask for autographs and conversation, and I'm always obliged to do what I can to make people happy.
Absolute pleasure to talk to you today, Brian. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Maurice. I certainly appreciate it as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.